Good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m. sharp, so I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's Business Support Forum, brought to you by Team Burlington. My name is Carla Nell. I'm the President and CEO of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce, and we're joined today by a number of experts from the DeGroote School of Business of McMaster University, who are here today to answer questions posed by many of you representatives of the business community as you work to respond to the challenges of COVID-19. Many thanks to all of you for submitting questions and areas of interest as part of the registration process. We appreciate your insights, and we're going to do our utmost today to respond to all of the questions that have been submitted. We have a very distinguished panel of guests from DeGroote joining us this morning, including Dr. Lin Wei Berman, who is the Dean of the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University. Dr. Wei Berman and his colleagues reached out to us a number of weeks ago as key partners within the Burlington business community. Dr. Wei Berman and other members of faculty raised their hand and offered to provide support directly to businesses to respond to your questions and to offer support as many of you work through these very challenging and unprecedented times. So I'd like to thank everyone from DeGroote who's on the line today, and thanks to everyone else who is attending and participating. This is a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of the expertise, the backgrounds, the significant experience of our panelists today. I also wanted to mention to those on the line that in addition to today's offering, DeGroote has very generously offered to work directly with businesses within the city who may have a need for some additional, more customized one-on-one advisory support. So throughout the session today and at the end, we're going to be providing a link that anyone on the line can utilize in order to reach out directly to DeGroote and take advantage of the expertise and the background of many of the faculty members who are joining us today and others who are similarly aligned to help you respond to current challenges, but also ensure that you are well positioned to seize upon and capitalize on some important emerging opportunities for businesses. So thank you everyone for joining today. I want to draw your attention to the raise hand function that is provided as part of this Zoom platform. We do have a small group today. There are about 40 of us on the line at present. There is going to be, in addition to the questions that were pre-submitted, an opportunity for those who are participating today to put your hand up and to directly pose a question to the experts that we have joining us. So I encourage you throughout the session, if you would like to participate in an interactive way, this is definitely an option available to you. So please do take advantage of that as well. So before we get started, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves momentarily and to highlight their background and areas of expertise. But I did want to introduce Dr. Lin Wei Berman. As I mentioned, he is the Dean of the DeGroote School of Business. He took on that role in January of 2013. Prior to that particular appointment, he was the Dean at Hassini School of Business from 2008 through 2012 inclusive. He also has a background as a professor of economics at the London School of Business. He was chair of the economic subject area, and prior to moving to the UK, he was a professor of economics at the University of Toronto. So Dr. Wei Berman has a significant expertise in this particular area. I want to thank you, Len, for joining us, for partnering with us as always, and for being here to support businesses throughout the city of Burlington and beyond. So I'd like to invite you to make a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Carla. We're very pleased to partner with you, with Team Burlington, on this very important initiative and be part of this webinar today. So COVID-19 has had this unprecedented effect on all of our businesses, including ours. We have 30,000 students, and we went from in class on March 13th to 5 days later being online. So the digital transformation affected us, it's affecting everyone. We're all forced to address issues so quickly that 3 months ago, were not on a table. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how or when we're coming out of this. But we do have deep research-based knowledge in many areas of business that we want to share and help our partners. We are at 4350 South Service Road. Do come and see us when we are again open. We are part of Burlington. We are part of our community. You are our community, and we're here to help. We'll help as much as we can. As Carla said, we have a portal which will be open called Ask an Expert. And the people, my 8 great faculty members who will introduce themselves in a moment, are here to provide assistance, not just today, but ongoing. And all this is gratis. If we have to provide students to help you through how you will go online, we will do that. We're here to help, and we're really grateful for your interest in us. And just remember, we are Burlington. So let me just introduce the 8 faculty members who are going to spend a minute each telling you who they are. Let me do this in alphabetic order. Behrouz Bakhtiari.
Hello, hi, my name is Behrouz. I'm an assistant professor in operations management at DeGroote School of Business. At DeGroote, I teach courses in data science, statistics, data analysis, and operations management. Outside of academia, my expertise and background is in logistics, supply chain optimization in the retail sector.
Thanks. Candice Chow.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm the assistant professor in strategic management at DeGroote. Prior to, though, assuming my academia role full-time, I was the head of strategy in the private sector for more than 10 years, with other management roles, including operations and financial planning for the past 25 years. So my area of expertise, in particular in our current challenging times, is around business planning and strategic planning, both short-term and long-term, and helping businesses understand their drivers for revenues, for cost, and also for future growth. And so I'm looking forward to helping the communities here to stay relevant in times of challenge. So talk to you guys later.
Elkafi Hassini.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a professor and chair of operations management. My area of research is in supply chain management and transportation of freight with use of technology such as Internet of Things and drones. And I'd be happy to engage with any of you that may have questions in those areas. Thank you.
Thanks. Benson Honig.
Morning, everyone. I'm the Teresa Cascioli Chair in Entrepreneurial Leadership at DeGroote. My area of research is nascent entrepreneurship, contingency planning, and looking at entrepreneurship in environments of transition, which this certainly is. I'm the nerdy kid that had the lemonade stand next door, and I've had businesses all my life. So I've been in construction and in technology, and worked for GE for a decade, putting in MRI machines. So in addition to living in Silicon Valley for 20 years and helping people start businesses, I look forward to helping anyone that I can with advice. So thanks for tuning in today.
Marvin Ryder.
Hi, I'm Marvin Ryder. I teach marketing and entrepreneurship here at the DeGroote School of Business. I've been doing that for 36 years. I know it's hard to believe, looking at my gray hair, that I could be that old doing this. And for some of you who are tuning in today, you might recognize me as a bit of the face of the School of Business. I wind up doing a number of TV and radio interviews over the course of this COVID-19 crisis, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Marvin. Sash, Vaid.
Hi, everyone. Great to meet you all here. I finished my PhD from the University of Houston last year, and I'm an assistant professor in the marketing area. My research spans two broad areas. One is marketing strategy, and the other is around artificial intelligence. Some of the recent work that I've done has tried to understand the pandemic itself. My big thought on this topic is we're in the age where we've almost entered the age of hard science, and that'll have a huge impact on how businesses run. So I'm looking forward to talk to all of you. And if there are any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Ruhai Wu.
Hello, hi. I'm Ruhai, associate professor in marketing. My work mainly focuses on the retail marketing strategies, especially in the field related to e-commerce. So that includes how to manage the online channels, coordinate the online and offline channels, product and pricing strategies, target advertising, social media marketing. It's my great pleasure to have this chance to discuss with you about the business solutions to COVID-19. Besides, I want to mention that at McMaster, we have electronic marketing course. So we have a group of trained students who know some basic digital marketing skills. We have collaborated with some local business and to help them to launch the online channels and design the digital campaign, digital promotion campaigns. Thanks.
Thanks. And the last but definitely not least is Haniyeh Yousofpour.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Haniyeh Yousofpour. I'm also an assistant professor at DeGroote School of Business in the Human Resource Management and Organizational Behavior Department. I teach leadership, human resource management, and negotiation. And outside of the academic world, I provide consulting services in change management, implementing process improvement, and reducing costs.
Thanks, Haniyeh. So as Carla mentioned, we have this new web portal called Ask an Expert, and you can go on there and ask a question, and we'll find someone who can help you solve that question. So let's move to the next phase with your questions.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for introducing yourself. As I mentioned at the outset, as part of the registration process, many of you submitted questions, some incredibly interesting questions. And so we're going to start our discussion today with questions and responses to those. And then we're going to open up and give everyone participating an opportunity to raise their hand and ask the experts directly. So the first question we'd like to start our conversation today with is a discussion about which sectors are going to be hit the hardest, both in the short as well as the long term as a result of COVID-19 and the crisis we're dealing with. So Benson, could we ask you to provide some initial insights on that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. You know, I'm a big fan of research, and I'm going to share my screen here with this particular item, which I've given you the link for. It's the CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. They did a report, and they're constantly doing reports looking at the COVID crisis. Hopefully you can see the screen. And the reason why I'm going to this, there is something that we call the wisdom of the crowd. And this is basically firms that are by field they're being asked the probability that their firm will survive. And you see on the top, the red ones are the ones that say they will not survive beyond May by industry. What we see here is hospitality is the largest, followed by arts, recreation, and then social services, transportation, retail, and then we go down. You see agriculture, according to this list, will be least hit, wholesale, not so bad, and professional services. Of course, a lot of these professional services are working online now. Manufacturing, there's a little more optimism, and natural resources, because at the end, someone needs to buy them. And if we go a little further on the report, and I encourage you to read it, you'll see this is those in the industries that actually asked for emergency business credit from the CEBA. And what you see is the largest share by far are people in arts and recreation, followed by social services, hospitality. So we can make an assumption according to the behavior of these businesses that these are the most challenged. And the ones that are probably least challenged would be natural resources and agriculture. So now, having said that, if you're in one of those industries, arts, hospitality, social services, I want to emphasize that even though many firms around you may be struggling and even failing, this is a great opportunity to revise, to look at this as an opportunity to be ingenious and do something different and stand out. It's often in environments like this that there is a calamity that new businesses emerge and do extremely well with new business models. So if you're in one of these worst categories, retail, administrative, hospitality, think of it as an opportunity. And hopefully we can work with you on some possible solutions to how to emerge from the COVID pandemic even stronger and healthier than you were beforehand. And I guess I could turn it over to one of my colleagues who might be interested in following up. Marvin, would you like to add anything to this, to my points here?
I would have answered the question differently than Benson did. I come at it this way. I'm looking around which businesses are dealing with crowds of people. A dentist plies their trade sort of one-on-one. A nail salon does it one-on-one. And although they need to take some precautions, we're not in a crowd setting. But an airline has a plane, and you can't make money flying half-full planes. A sports team can't play to a 1/10 full arena or a baseball field of some sort. And I think they're the ones that are going to be challenged the most as we come back from this. Smaller businesses clearly financially don't have the ability to bridge a long time being closed. They're the ones seeking government support and will be able to, hopefully, most of them will be able to survive. But it's the ones where you've got crowds of people that I'm most concerned about. In Benson's analogy there, the arts sector, how do I perform a play to a house that's only 1/10 full? I really need everyone to be in attendance to make money on those sorts of things. And I don't quite know, again, what the answer is going to be. We can social distance up to a point. We could require all moviegoers to wear a mask. We could say to people, you need to have a glove, so as you're eating your popcorn, you're wearing a disposable glove. But ultimately, you're going to have 200 people in a room, and they're not going to be 6 feet apart from each other. That's the biggest question, I think, that's facing government policymakers and even the public health officials. It's relatively easy to open a golf course. If you play golf with me, I only see you at the tee. I never see you again until we get to the green. I'm in the woods somewhere bashing the ball around. But if you're in a theater, if you're in those tight groups of people, a rock concert, I just don't know how you do that. So those are the question marks for me going forward.
Now, we have had a couple of hands raised, so I'm going to ask Shauna to unmute because it would seem that we've got two members of the audience that would like to offer a follow-up question. So I think we had Laurent first.
Laurent, if you want to, should be able to speak, Laurent.
There was a second person that had raised their hand, Shauna, if we could unmute them. Laurent may be having some difficulties. Still showing as mute.
It's Candice.
So I just want to kind of add on to Marvin's comments about kind of, I think the underlying economic model is shifting because especially for industries where crowds are required to gain revenue. I've heard this new term coming into play is we're moving into a new economic or contactless economy. It sounds pretty somber in my opinion, but that's kind of the reality. And reflecting on Marvin's comments, I think if your business is somewhat crowd dependent, I think the shift is perhaps your revenue model needs to start to shift. Is there any portion that can can be driven larger from a digital offshoot of new product and services, and then maybe less reliant on the crowd-based, attendance-based, in-person types kind of revenue generation model. So something we need to start thinking about, is there any way that we can pivot? So it depends on the business, that would be different for everyone. So that's one to add back to Marvin's comment.
And Candice, that's a great segue into our next question, which is, how can small businesses begin to define that pathway for recovery? Should they anticipate a return to the status quo, or should they be contemplating and thinking about some of the permanent changes in consumer behavior that are going to naturally arise from the COVID-19 crisis? So maybe we can ask Marvin and Benson to opine on that, and then I'd love to hear from Sash as well. So Marvin, over to you.
Well, these are difficult questions. You've got 8 or 9 experts here at the School of Business. We each have a crystal ball, and we each envision a slightly different world going forward. A couple of things I would say to start with. First, tell consumers there's something they cannot do. I'm sorry, you cannot go to a restaurant. I'm sorry, you cannot go to a movie. And the one thing they now want to do desperately more than anything else is go to a movie theater or go to a restaurant. So when your industry is allowed to reopen, I think there is going to be some pent-up demand. I think people want to get as close as they can to the old normal. What you have to do as a small business as you reopen is to show them that you are valuing their health. That these are the steps you are taking to try to keep them as healthy as you possibly can be. So for instance, when I go to get my hair cut, I'm expecting my barber to be wearing some sort of face shield while they're cutting my hair. They're going to have to touch me. They're going to have to use their clippers. Can't get around that. They can't cut my hair from 10 feet away firing a laser at me. But they are going to have to show to me that they care for my health. If I'm a limousine company, I'm just getting in the back of the car and someone is driving me. But did you sanitize the car beforehand? What precautions has your driver taken beforehand? Still offer your service, but the question in people's minds is going to be that. And then I think what's also going to happen is first adopters, the first ones back in, are going to use the power of social media to report on what they've seen. If I've had a great experience at my barber, I'm going to go to Yelp or I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to share, wow, this person really values my health. Look at these steps they took. Or they don't value my health. My gosh, they were spitting on me and doing that and doing something else. Everyone stay away. Those online reviews are going to be huge. But the biggest problem any small business has is really not under your control. That's when the government's going to give the all clear. Here in Ontario, we cracked open the door just that wide yesterday. It's not clear how long it's going to take to crack open all the doors. Honestly, I think we're going to be broadening our economy or opening our economy probably for the better part of the next 2 months. And if you're not in that first wave, you've still got to try to batten down the hatches until someone finally gives you the all clear.
Thank you. Benson, any thoughts?
Yeah, so in answer to this question, I'd say, first of all, these are not temporary changes. You will unlikely be able to go back to the way things were 6 months ago, probably forever, or certainly not for a very long time, number of years. So that means that any planning you should do should incorporate the fact that fear is probably one of the biggest driving forces right now that any of us have to deal with. A survey was done on who would be willing to go on a cruise ship in the next year. And the answer was only 10% would even consider going on a free cruise ship in the next year. A free cruise ship, mind you, right? So the issue of how you change your business is critical, and you need to be thinking about really making the glass half full rather than half empty. And I think the way to do that is to say, okay, we have a new normal. And yeah, okay, as Marvin points out, they'll be cracking the business environment open a little bit at a time, but it's going to be different. If you're a movie theater, it might mean every other seat is vacant. If it's a restaurant, it means only 1/3 of the tables are going to be used. What does that mean to your business model? So that means you're going to have to change your business model for the foreseeable future to incorporate the issue, first of all, of fear, And second of all, the issue of turning, some of these problems into opportunities. Marvin mentioned the issue of golf courses. I spoke to an accountant who told me that golf courses for the golf course owner are an actual nightmare because of all the points of potential infection. Every time you reach your hand into the hole to pick up the golf ball, the clubs, the golf club itself, food, and having a large people there. So, they make a lot of their money on food and alcohol. So bottom line is, given that this is the new normal, the business person should think, how, given the constraints that I'm likely to encounter, can I create a business model that is satisfactory for the immediate future, meaning I'm suggesting at least a 2-year period.
Are there any sources of wisdom, data, or surveys that you're aware of that might provide businesses with some insight about these impacts on consumer behavior so that they can make evidence-based decisions?
I would start at the Consumer Behavior Survey. It's done at the University of Michigan. That's probably the best start because they ask, and it's regularized, they ask it all the time, the same questions, and you can actually see how consumers have changed their behavior. But some of my colleagues might have some other suggestions.
Carla, let me just come at it a little different way. As I said, everyone's got a different crystal ball. I'm going to disagree with Benson. I don't think it is going to be the new normal for the next couple of years. I've been watching real consumers behaving just a little ways away from us in this place called the United States of America, many people are breaking quarantine and jumping out, doing things that I think are just unconscionable, and yet those consumers demand the right to not be socially distant from each other and to get around each other. I think it's going to be a very interesting reopening period. Benson is right. There is a chunk of our society that is absolutely scared to death, that is afraid to even venture out their own front door. But there are others that are militant, demanding their right to march out of their front door and form groups. This weekend in Port Dover, a lot of people took advantage of the nice weather and drove down to Port Dover. They were not socially distant and they didn't care. And I think this is the confusion. Whenever I've watched, and again, I've been around a long time, I've watched major world events like 9/11, and I heard nice people like me say, well, everything's changed forever. And really, it didn't change all that much. Yes, there was more screening at the airports, but we very quickly got back to the way our life was before. We kind of like that. We have a lot of inertia in our behavior. And so I think a lot of people are going to try to reestablish, quote, the old normal within some parameters of the new normal for a while. But it's very hard to tell because we've never gone through something like this. None of us were alive. I was only 2 at the time during the Spanish epidemic in 1918. So I don't have a lot of firsthand experience, but I'm not clear to me that everything changed in the world. So Benson's not wrong. When you ask people, they always imagine the worst. It's a bit like closing a hospital in your neighborhood. Oh my gosh, people are going to be dying all over the place. But then when you actually close the hospital, no, it doesn't happen like that. People are really good at imagining, but I have a feeling people are going to work very hard to reestablish the old normal.
Thank you. Now, I was going to ask Sash to provide some comments as well, which I'd love to do at this point. And then we've got Ruhai, who's also raised his hand. So I'm going to ask Sash to offer his thoughts, and then we'll hear from Ruhai.
Thank you. Thanks, Benson and Marvin, and obviously Candice, for your perspective. I come more from a digital and artificial intelligence tradition, and I'll try to frame this answer in that context. The way I see it is digital now is an even more important real estate. So look what we are doing, right? So digital is a reality and is a reality for businesses as well. Given the fact that consumers cannot really come in, and there are all these social distancing measures in place, and there is the fear factor that Benson talked about. What is it that businesses can do, or rather small businesses can do during this time? So I think there are few thoughts. Artificial intelligence points us towards two broad areas of development that have seen some progress over the last few years: augmented reality and virtual reality. So three-dimensional digital spaces. So for instance, if you are in the retail business and you you're waiting for customers' footfall, and that footfall isn't happening because of social distancing measures, can you set up a three-dimensional website and provide consumers that virtual reality experience, so that they just enhances their interest in your product? Obviously, this is not possible in all cases. For instance, in case of restaurants or, I don't know, saloons, hairdressers, I don't know how you would go to a barber digitally. But this can serve as some sort of a bridge that sort of engages consumers. And I think the important thing to understand here is, even for businesses that are not really able to provide the end service or the end product to the consumer, this definitely offers a very good opportunity to extend your market research. There are tons of ways in which you could possibly engage with consumers and try and understand their behavior digitally using augmented reality and virtual reality platforms. So there is definitely a possibility that I see, and there's definitely an opportunity to use these new technologies, and specifically use artificial intelligence-based technologies to try and understand consumer behavior before we can get into a stage where we can start thinking about closing the loop with a product sale or a service sale and looking at profitability. Yeah.
Great. So Ruhai, and then I also had Behrouz, Candice, and Haniyeh raise their hands. So we'll hear from Behrouz.
Absolutely. Ruhai, or
there you are.
You can start first.
Okay.
Okay. So just a quick comment here. I would like to add to the comments put forward by my colleagues. Absolutely, I agree with them. Digital transformation is very important. Also, as Candice mentioned, businesses require to shift or to find more innovative channels, more innovative products. And one thing I would like to draw your attention to is, I believe the new way to run business is going to stay here for a very long time. I think we are not going back to the way things were before. And it's not just out of fear. Businesses and consumers alike have experienced new things during this pandemic. And I think this pandemic is specifically different from any other pandemics or any other changes or disruptions we've had before, exactly because of digital transformation. The accessibility of technology that we've had during this pandemic is absolutely different from the pandemic that we might have, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. Now, almost all businesses have started running their programs or day-to-day businesses using work from home, procedures. So employees have started working from home. Many consumers have, shifted to the online channels to purchase their goods or even services. Now, many of these changes might have actually proven to be effective. So many consumers might have actually liked the new way things are, in terms of, let's say, buying a lot of or a good portion of their products online instead of, visiting their local businesses or the brick and mortar retail stores. Businesses also might have realized that the new procedures, have proven to be effective. So these changes may not just be out of fear. Some of them may be out of choice, and it could be an opportunity for a lot of businesses to, you know, try to find innovative solutions to benefit from this change of behavior in not just consumers, but also businesses. Many businesses might feel more reluctant to partner up with international partners and maybe seeking partnership with local businesses. And this is a great opportunity for businesses in a place like Burlington to try to find more local partners as opposed to their former international partners. So this is absolutely an opportunity, and I think it's gonna stay here for a very, very long time out of choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Candice?
I think it's Ruhai's turn.
Okay, thank you. It's a hot topic, so everyone want to contribute. So that's great. I also learn a lot from you guys. Actually, I think that's from my point of view, when we talk about the change of consumer behaviors and the firm's business solution to that, we need to consider about the timeline. That means actually in what kind of range of the time that we discuss about this change and the solutions. If we talk about the kind of instant change or recent change, actually say in the coming several months or in the coming year, I guess is the major concern is that the consumers actually has a, well, as the Benson has mentioned, that is a consumers' fears of the virus. And then for business, we need to consider how to manage the business operations with social distancing, right? So that is a major change. But if we talk about the long-term, permanent change, I guess actually that is a good opportunity for us. I guess it's the consumers actually are more used to, are forced to adopt the digital commerce, e-commerce, right? They are forced to use this online shopping, right, or mobile shopping, online payment. Previously, actually, see, my parents are close to 80. And I say I'm doing the e-commerce, so I talk to them a lot to say, okay, you can go shopping online. They never did, but this time they did. They do grocery online, and every morning they open their website and do grocery shopping. So well, that's changed, and even after this pandemic, well, they are used to this kind of shopping behaviors. They're not afraid of that. Right, so and people are more willing to use this digital channels. I think that is opportunities. That is opportunity for this is a new business opportunity. But for business practitioners, that must also be a challenge, because we got used to our traditional business operation. No one want to make a change. That is incur cost. But now we have to change. Right, so in the long run, that's my suggestion to business, actually figure out how to run business online. That is definitely something you need to do. So there's a short run, long run. But if our timeline is not the 1 year, it's not the 10 years, is 2 to 3 years, I guess that we should consider about the economic recession. When the fear passes, our economy definitely will fall into a recession. Hopefully it's not a depression. Very possible it will be a depression. That means what? That means the supply and demand both shrink. Consumers become less wealthy. They're willing to pay jobs down. And on supply side, you find actually there are less companies, less supply support. And that will be a hard time for all the business. So we should prepare for a hard time. That means that we should actually to figure out a way to reduce the cost and to run business more efficiently. And another concern actually I'm really concerned is the hyperinflation. Because this is very similar to the case in 1970s, 1980s in US. Actually, the economy shrinks, but the government to help those people, actually they issue the money supply increased dramatically. I don't know that's how much inflation we will meet actually next year. And that is all these problems actually that's actually in the coming 2 to 3 years, and the business should prepare for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Candice?
Okay, great. So building on what my colleague said, I am going to post a report that I read, written by McKinsey on the chat box. And they're kind of reflecting and echoing some of your thoughts around what the future is going to look like, the new normal, we call it. And they believe, okay, and they believe that there will be lasting changes, some of what you said, about physical distance. There will be some hesitation. The degree will depend on kind of our appetite for that. Health and privacy. So something you need to think about, and in particular for the privacy side, I want to highlight. The privacy side is important because as we move into digital, you'll be adopting more virtual and digital, I would say, capabilities and technologies. And cybersecurity is going to be one of the more important challenges that we need to prepare. When you go online, make sure that you think about how to protect your customers' data as well as your own data as well. So that's kind of on the side. Another important things, and the report actually highlighted, is consumers will be worried that there will be more of these unexpected challenges come, and I think we should be prepared for that. And consumers will spend less, and they will save more as a result. With that, I'm reflecting on what does that mean. As Ruhai was saying, that there will be businesses that will not survive this pandemic, and I'm very confident the group here will do very well as we support each other. But what does it mean to your services, whether it's digital or actually in person? I think customers will look for quality more so. And there has been discussions around the underlying economic model that has been governing our society in the past decades is really focused on productivity, doing more with less. But I think there may be a shift as well, as there are fewer suppliers and customers may be spending less, but they probably want to spend things that last more. If it's experiential product or services, then I think you're creating a digital service or experience that is really much more robust than before will be important. So people are looking for more quality, but less. So it's quantity is less, quality more. So something to think about. And the second thing is for companies to really kind of grab the customers' emotional affection, I would say, to stand out. To me, your purpose and also how you support your own local communities in times of crisis will really make your products and services resonate. And use this opportunity to also, I would say, advertise it or share that on social media. And I think this is the really good time. And companies and brands are really authentic. I think we'll do very well in this time as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Haniyeh?
Well, the topic has been discussed a lot, so I'll just add a few points. Someone has asked about consumer behavior, and while there's a lot of data, I did a survey of 300 people in 35 countries and how they will change their behavior. And looking at something as simple as shaking hands. Are we going to start feeling comfortable to shake our hand where we are interacting with in business settings? And 60% said yes, they will go back to that once everything settles down, and 40% said no. But when we're looking from businesses, and a lot of my colleagues have covered that, there's first a component of fear that people are not going to go into a crowded situation because they fear it. Then there's a component of legal issues around it. So the government is going to have imposed restrictions that the businesses have to adjust. And, going back to Marvin's point, in Georgia, they started removing the restriction that people can go out, but 3 per person could be in the nail salon. And we saw a big lineup. So there are the legal restrictions that are coming. But the component that is really an opportunity for small businesses is convenience. Because now, to what a lot of the colleagues were saying, people before, so especially maybe the older adults, were hesitant to use online shopping, and now they had to use it. And now it is a matter of convenience. So moving forward, it's going to be more convenient for them to go down that road. So as businesses are starting to think about coming back, definitely there's going to be some changes, even in the airline industry. Right now, as of May 1st, Air Canada is putting passengers in every other seat. They're checking temperature. They're asking them to have their masks. In the meanwhile, the airplane manufacturers are looking at alternative seating arrangements that would address this concern in the long term, having the seats with a glass shield so that they can go back to their higher capacity, but in a new format. And the small businesses should be following kind of the same idea, that for the short term, they have to follow the legal restrictions, but not underestimate the whole concept of convenience. Right now, I've talked to a few small business owners, especially right now, spa and nail salons are some of the top hot ones that people are just waiting to go back to. And a lot of them are starting to hire for work to go to consumers' home to provide the services. And there is going to be a new customer segment that are willing to pay a premium for that convenience, which is now introduced to them. So that's something to just think about as businesses are thinking about how to change their model is, in the short term, how to respond to the legal requirements, but in the long term, how to leverage the desire for convenience that a lot of customers have now been exposed to. So there is definitely hope moving forward. There's going to be a downfall, but there's hope in the long term to come up with a new model.
Now,
Carla, can I add a thought here? So you've heard, all those who are listening, you've heard a wide range of views here, because it's a very general question. How will small business be affected by this? But every one of you are different in different businesses, and even within the same business, you have different realities. And so going forward, what we're offering is a service for individuals. So when you hear all this, you say, well, what's the answer for me? This, as I said, was a general question. So we do have answers for you, particularly in our new the website, which is Ask an Expert. So do come to us.
Thanks for that. And, there's a lot of food for thought here, and I'm sure that many on the line are thinking through what their individual business model is currently, what are going to be the influencers on consumer behavior that are specific to their industry, their sector, the good or service that they offer. So it's wonderful that they'll be able to reach out to DeGroote directly for that additional support. We've talked a bit about, how do you research? What is the research that's available to help inform business decisions moving forward? One of the things we heard from a registrant is a question about, should businesses be reaching out to their patrons directly right now in order to gain insight about what people may be looking for or preferring in terms of a future business model? And beyond that, more broadly, how can businesses remain connected to their clients during this time as we all eagerly anticipate moving forward with reopening? So, Benson, if you'd love to weigh in here, that would be great. And then we'll open it up to our other faculty members.
Sure, I'll just give you some personal experience. I have about a half a dozen bank accounts all over the world. Only one bank actually called me and said, are you okay? Are there any issues that we can help with? Is there anything special we can do? And interestingly, the bank that called me was a local bank that only had a fraction of what some of my deposits were elsewhere. So I think what we can do, whether you're in active arrangements with your clients or not, is actually reach out and call people and show them that you care about them as human beings, as individuals. And that gives you an opportunity to find out what possible needs they might have that your business might be able to solve, specific and individual needs. So you're in a great opportunity. People are home, and that means you can call them. In a normal circumstance, you never find your customers because they're busy working or taking the kids out of daycare or doing whatever. Here you have a great opportunity that if you can call them, ask them how things are going about the product and service you need or they need, or that you're involved with, you might be able to pivot and come up with new ways to provide the kind of service that you're going to have to provide both now and in the future.
Great. Are there others on the line that would like to comment on that question about, oh, I've got 2 raised hands. Candice, I saw yours first, and then I'd love to hear from Elkafi. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think kind of adding on to what Benson is saying, really getting close to your patrons is a phenomenal opportunity right now. Going forward, so I think building social media presence, building some kind of loyalty programs will help you pivot also beyond this transition. Is if you can understand what is their purchasing behavior, frequency of visiting your stores or buying behavior, and constantly keep in touch. So if you haven't built that practice, I would encourage you to do that, because you can now kind of build into your practice indicators, leading indicators of what will be changing and how you can perhaps change. If you are seeing certain things drop ahead of any kind of news and merge, you are better positioned to be more resilient and adaptive. So that's kind of my quick comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Elkafi?
Yeah, thank you, Carla. I just wanted to share my experience with the project that one of my graduate students and I are doing with a company right now. And I think it's great what Benson and Candice mentioned on reaching directly to the client. I just wanted to add on that what we're doing is we're looking also at the ecosystem around the client, because so I don't know about people who are attending now what type of sectors or businesses they're in, but in some sectors, if you know about your supplier or customers, you can also predict what would happen to your own client. And also looking at, I think today around the world, maybe a dozen or more countries have opened partially for business. So looking at that experience, where if for the type of business that you're in Europe or elsewhere, what experience they're having, and also what Ruhai has mentioned, keeping in perspective the overall economy as well. So I also feel, just as now as myself as a customer, is I may not necessarily like to open my email or to pick up my phone and hear every day from all the banks and all the businesses that I deal with about COVID-19. I'm hearing about it too much that sometimes it's good to have a break from the overwhelming information that's focused too much on COVID-19. And so looking beyond the customer without necessarily maybe focusing on the customer is also something that can add value in terms of prediction where we're going. That's all I had to add. Yeah.
Great.
Carla, can I quickly add something here? Teaching marketing for as long as I have, I've tried to explain to companies that the wrong time to do marketing research is when they've got a problem. It says to me that they haven't been talking to consumers as they've gone along. You should always, not just through COVID-19, but always be engaging your patrons, your customers in a conversation. What's working for you? What's not working for you? Hey, I've heard about this new trend. Do you think we should be doing something here? Do you think we should be doing something there? How do we adjust? And you should always be talking to them, taking their pulse, so to speak, because consumers aren't static. What worked 10 years ago isn't going to work in 2020, but works in 2020 may not work in 2030. We are always evolving in our needs and our wants and what makes us happy. So for certain, if you are still open, even if it's in minimal way, suppose you're a restaurant and you've only got takeaway service through Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats, still find ways to chat with consumers. What's working, what's not working for them. You might remember when we first went to online delivery, people could get food, but many people, like when they go to a restaurant, have a little beverage with it, a beverage specifically of an alcoholic nature. And initially that wasn't allowed. No, I can send you food, but I can't send you alcohol. And the Ontario government actually changed the rules because they got feedback from people who said, well, I'd like to have a glass of wine with my meal, or I'd like to have, I don't know, a craft beer with my meal. Why can't the restaurant do that? To me, the speed with which the government responded was unheard of. Normally, they'd have to study this 7 ways come Sunday before they would change a rule because, my gosh, children might be influenced and this might be influenced. But they reacted because consumers asked for it. So in terms of research, yes, you can do surveys. Yes, you can do online polling. You can do the formal kinds of things. But informal marketing research, talking to your customers, is just the best thing anybody can do in their business.
Great. Haniyeh, you had raised your hand, and then we're going to hear from Ruhai.
Sure. So what I was going to just add is that, because to Elkafi's point, there are so many emails coming. Consumers are overwhelmed because everywhere they have ever been and received the service, somebody's sending them an email. We're thinking about you. And like a lot of the ones that really appreciate this reach out, if there's also some kind of value being provided to them. So we're asking for them to learn about how they would like things to change coming back, or what are some of their pain points right now, or getting information to prepare you for the next stage, but also sending them value. So I've had, for instance, the hair salon that I go to, she did like a video of how to cut your own hair and how to do all of this, and kind of sending out information that, trusting that, once this is over, this doesn't mean you're not going to come to me to do this, because now you know how to do it, but that during these times, I do care about your, about what's important to you and about your hair while this is happening. So thinking about when we're reaching out, not just say we're here, we support you, get some information to help for the next, preparing for the next stage, but also thinking about what value you can give them during these times, without asking for much in return, to help them, which really makes it more sincere to have that reach out, and just thinking about how creative to be in your business while doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Ruhai?
Yes, thanks. Just want to add some points here. From my point of view, this communication with the customer is costly. It's involved, actually, you have to design the content, you have to hire people to make the call, or post the postings on social media channels, or send them emails. This is costly. So especially in this special period, situation is tough to most of the business. And my suggestion is that you should be better design your communication strategy instead of just do it. Well, that means actually, you need to think about actually the purpose of this communication strategy. What are you going to do? You want to explore the new business opportunities, or you want to retain the current customers, or you want to prepare for the economic reopen, right? So my personal expectation, there's no proof, but my personal expectation is that Ontario will reopen its economy actually in a month. We cannot last for longer. So that means actually, so if the economy will open in a month, and in several weeks or a month, and for the business right now, when we communicate with our customers, we should prepare for the economic reopen, right? We should prepare, actually, we should discuss with, inform the customers actually what we can do in the future, what is a new business form or new business operations when the economy comes back, right? And or maybe start pre-booking the services, right? So that's you need to think about what to do, right? It's not just to retain the customer. And then the second issue is that you also need to think about who is your target customer for these communication strategies. Is the loyal customers, or is this kind of marginal customers, or is it new customers, right? Personally, when we face this financial concerns, budget concerns, I do not suggest companies to spend a lot of money on loyal customers. They are loyal, right? So that might explain that what happened to Benson, that, hey, actually, the companies you have a large amount of investment, they do not need to keep contact with you. They know you are loyal, you are rich, you will not have this financial problem, and you will not have willingness to invest more in short term, right? Why they bother to contact with you? And the company, the bank who has a small fraction of your investment, to them, you are the marginal customer. You are the customer, they may want to keep you loyal, right? Maybe get more business opportunities. So that's why they contact with you. Right? So they are smart. Right? So for business, actually, I guess we very carefully think about the purpose and classify the loyal customer, and then design the contents and choose the right channel to reach those customers. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Behrouz, I think you had raised your hand. Is there anything you wanted to offer?
Yes, thank you. So just a very, very quick comment. I would like to talk about empathy. The smaller the community, the more empathetic the consumers are towards local businesses. So this could be a very, very good opportunity for small businesses to start or establish or strengthen the existing channels of communication to their consumers, to their customers, to their patrons, to learn. Consumers also in difficult times tend to become more vocal about what they want, what they need, and the new practices that they might have, developed. So it is a great opportunity for businesses. Consumers are vocal now. They would tell you what they want, what they need, what the new norm's going to be for them. And as Marvin mentioned, it's always good to take their pulse, to talk to them, to establish new communication channels, to strengthen existing communication channels, and learn from them. They are ready to tell you about their requirements, and this is also a good time to learn for businesses, especially in smaller community, especially for small businesses that may already have developed some good channels of communication to their consumers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, for those insights. I'm going to shift gears a little bit now in terms of the questions that we've received. We've been very focused on the consumer, the customer, that outward facing point of view and perspective. But we know that during this crisis, there have been tremendous changes and impacts on the workplace itself. And we've received questions from some of the participants today who are looking for some feedback and some insight about how do you balance the need for employee centricity during this time as we're moving towards reopening? How do you balance the fact that this has been a very difficult time for a lot of businesses from a revenue perspective? And how do you make sure as you move forward, as you're trying to recoup those lost revenues, that you don't lose sight of or compromise employees? So can we talk a little bit about that organizational dynamic and how we balance employees as well as our external facing service delivery? And I'm going to ask maybe Candice to speak first, and then Haniyeh, can we ask you for some comments as well?
Okay, great. No, this is a great question. I also wish there was a crystal ball, but different businesses are different. So I just want to caveat that. First one, once you start recouping and gaining some momentum, it's around setting expectations. Now, for small business, is we set expectations around, for example, the dividend payout. Maybe sacrificing, maybe some executives or leadership team may take a deferral in terms of some kind of salary reduction. Think about what some of these things can or need to take a lesser priority and allow you to reinvest back in the business to help. Because to grow and to get revenue, you need investments back into the core business, and in this kind of changing times, especially shifting platforms and things like that. So the second question, I said, aside from setting expectation, the second thing you need to think about is priorities. At the end of the day, it's all about trade-off, because you have only so much. You set aside a dividend payment, you reduce salary. There's only a small pot of money. It will grow over time, but there's only a small pot. So it's about trade-off. Now, this is my perspective. Employees, at the end of the day, is everything. Without them, really your business isn't going to function to the highest performance. So employees is a very important part. So is other things, IT, sales, and marketing. But what I challenge people to think about employee-centric programs is see beyond as a cost, see that as an investment, and see beyond as a short-term thing or a long-term thing. Because we're talking about building resilience for the long term. This is a long game. This is not just recovery and be done with it. And so employee investment, see that as an important, almost as important as your sales and marketing, as important as your technology. Especially, there are two things at stake here. One is risks, reputation risks. So if you don't train them well, let's say on new safety and health procedures, or training well how to use your digital platforms, how to communicate social media, there's a reputational risk. And that risk you can't take, especially in this time of change. And if you do it well, it can create really positive press. Second one thing that I want you to think about employees is they are also your advocate for your brand. Especially for small business in your local communities, your employees probably are in the same families and the same local communities as well. So if you invest in the training that is relevant for your needs at this moment in time or the next 3 to 6 years, they can create very positive feedback. Maybe even ask them to kind of, be referrals, internal sales people as well. So you can invest in them and harness those investments in different ways. That maybe you can lower your sales and marketing costs, but use your employees to help you spread the word about your business. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about a paradigm shift, how you see employee costs. Now, another thing is that you can be creative in terms of your investment in training. So in these times, there are a lot of places where you potentially can get training either at no cost or cheaper. So a couple of things you can do. One is obviously if it's a task-related training, if you have internal expertise, do internal training. Especially if your business is not in full force yet to gaining the same volume momentum before, use that time wisely when people are idling, do virtual training, have conversations with the employees, use different tools to internally train on the task. Secondly, there are a lot of sites now, you can do a lot of training. You can learn machine learning, you can do programming, you can learn a lot of things. So sign up on those free courses. And also there are a lot of, I sent a link actually last night. There is a community social media called Alignable. And in there, you can actually connect yourselves with small business in your region for free. And you may be able to get free training, especially everybody now is hoping to help each other. And in the next maybe couple of months, maybe people willing to help you at a really low cost and or free until everybody get back into kind of full swing of things. So look at employee not as a cost, and also look at innovative ways to lower your cost to invest in training. So that's kind of my comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Haniyeh, would you like to offer any thoughts? Oh, you're still on mute.
Absolutely. Candice covered the main points very well. Just, in normal circumstances, when employers provide training to employees, it's always a question of, am I investing? And there's there's an old joke that the CFO says, if I'm training, what if I train these employees, invest in training them, and they leave, and the CEO respond, what if you don't train them and they stay? So for the employees that we're looking at long term, that are an essential part of your business success, definitely at any given time it's important to train them and to keep them engaged. But the challenge with training at any circumstances is that once you provide training to the employees, then you have to provide them with the opportunity to utilize that training, or else they're at the risk of leaving the organization when times are different. And as you are trying to make decisions with the limited resources that you have, who to invest in and who to train, you want to think about not just how much potential they have, but how much you can give them the opportunity and the platform to utilize the potential that you see in them, so that your investment in them is not going to a waste, and that they will stay with your business and help you grow. Now, during these times, especially, that it's very critical, and there are new skills required that were not part of your day-to-day business previously. It's even more important to train them. As Candice said, it's actually saving costs, because the faster they can adapt to the new way that you're doing, and the more you enable them to do a good job and to think critically and to have the right thinking process and the right technical skills, the more profit they can bring to the bottom line. So that's very important. But again, during these times, the most important task is to identify the employees that you do want to invest in and that you're seeing them being part of your organization in the long term, and that they want to be there. Number one, they want to be there, they have the potential to be there, and then you're willing to invest in them so that they grow with your business.
Carla, can I just add a word to this?
Yeah.
This time that we're in, all businesses are being tested or judged. In some ways, we're being judged by how we relate to consumers, but we're also being judged by how we relate to our employees. If you can remember back about 2 years ago when Ontario was raising the minimum wage first to $14 and then had planned to go to $15, there were some Tim Hortons franchisees who said, well, I don't want to give my employees that. You make me do that, then I'm going to cut back their paid breaks and I'm going to cut back their medical benefits. It didn't say anything about the food that Tim Hortons put out there. No one complained about the donuts or the coffee, but that attitude towards the employees, people went, I'd never seen that before. So if you, whatever you're doing to woo customers can be totally undermined if you do not treat your employees first rate as well. So if I'm a bank, if I'm a retail store, if I have an employee who's afraid to come back, and I say, well, that's tough. You don't want to come back. You don't have a job. Wow, that says volumes about your business more than the way you treat a customer. So I think, you can't be short-sighted here on either sides. Behrouz talked about empathy. Boy, this is something good businesses demonstrate in spades at this time. Empathy towards the consumer, but empathy as well towards their employees. Just quickly, I'll add one other version of that. I'm aware of a small business in Toronto, struggling. It's in a very high rent area. Yes, they're getting some loans from the government, but even with those, they're probably not going to be able to pay their rents. So they went to their landlord and said, look, can we take part in this program? You take a 25% cut, I do this. They said, no, we've been thinking about making the building a condo anyway, so if you can't pay, you're going to give us more incentives to kick you out. Boy, talk about Simon Legree suddenly appearing on the horizon here. What does that say about that company that they're using COVID as a way to maybe kick out a retail store to turn something into a condo? We do not advocate that kind of business here at the DeGroote School of Business. We, first and foremost, talk about leadership and ethics, and this is a trial, a test. Whether anyone realizes they're being graded on it, they are, and you need to treat everybody first rate.
Thank you. Well said. We do have a question that was submitted that's specific to a certain type of business. I'm gonna pose this and ask maybe Marvin and Behrouz or Ruhai to comment on this, and then we'll take a couple of minutes for questions from the participants on the line before we do our wrap up. It's amazing how quickly the time goes by. So this is a question that was submitted by a luxury ground transportation business. They're obviously on the essential service list, but they'd like some feedback or input about how to continue marketing during this time without appearing to be opportunistic. That's their concern. So because the perception is that this is somewhat of an indulgence that may not be top of mind right now, however, it is on the essential business list. What is your advice in terms of marketing and positioning?
Well, I would say that it's not wrong to share with your consumers or potential consumers the steps you're taking to keep them safe. Don't do it in some sensational way. Don't do it in some overly humorous way. But you're seeing a lot of that kind of promotion right now, where people are saying, we hear you, we know your concerns, and here's how we're responding, whether it's with contactless delivery or something else. If I'm an upscale transportation service, let me call it the limousine service for lack of a better term, what are the steps you're taking? I think you're simply informing people and saying, yes, we're still a luxury service, but your health is not a luxury to us. We're considering you as a very important person, and this is the steps you're taking. I don't see any problem with that. I don't think it would be necessarily a point of separation, a unique selling proposition or a competitive advantage, because I think a lot of other people are going to do the same thing. But you have to inform people, they're going to be questioning what my health means to you. And you're simply answering the question that's at the top of their mind. So I think as long as you take it seriously and show empathy, again, that's a key word here, boy, no problem at all.
Thank you. Behrouz, do you have anything to offer?
Just a quick comment, not so much on the marketing part, but on the positioning part. Research surveys show that a lot of businesses are, again, backpedaling to some extent on partnering up with international partners, and they're seeking more partnership in their local environment. So for this company specifically, it could be beneficial for them to seek more partnership with their local businesses, because there are a lot of businesses that are looking for local partners, because their former partnerships have been disrupted, and there may not be appetite for reestablishing the international partnerships. So there's a lot of opportunity, especially in small communities, for local partnerships. Yes, so that was my comment.
Thank you, Benson, and then Sash.
Yeah, I would just add that if you think this is a luxury market, think of who your customer is. Your customer has resources. COVID is very much an inequality separator. There are some people that are doing better now or as well as they ever did, and there are a lot of people that are really suffering. I have to say that probably the group on this panel, we're privileged, we're able to continue working, we have our salaries, we don't have to worry as much about where our next paycheck is coming from. So clearly, if we're talking about, let's say, as an example, a luxury limo service, your clientele would be in the same framework. So I would suggest, first of all, think about offering to donate a percentage of your profits to healthcare or some other disadvantaged group, maybe a food bank or something like that. But people that have resources, we've been cooped in our house a lot. You might have an opportunity to allow people indulgences. It's okay. You've got to give them the free space to say it's okay to indulge yourself. You've been, maybe it's an anniversary and you want to go for a ride to Niagara Falls and back. And you're just going to sit in the car and look at the falls. Nothing wrong with that. And then part of, you would know, look, this is an indulgence, but part of the fee that I'm paying is going to a good cause. So I would think about remarketing yourself. You know who your client is, but make it in a way that they can justify this indulgence, because these are difficult times for a lot of people.
Thank you. Sash, and then Ruhai.
Yeah, hi. I just want to step back a little bit and zoom out for a moment. While the question focuses on the luxury market, but essentially what we're trying to do here is we're trying to identify ways in which businesses can create bubbles of operation with respect to targeted customers. Now, this notion of bubbles actually caught my attention when I was reading up yesterday the way in which Australia and New Zealand are trying to create a travel corridor between themselves. And I thought to myself, wow, that sounds very cool, but that's happening at a macro level, at a more global international level. What if a similar mechanism could be created or operationalized at a more micro level? So what that basically means is being able to identify a specific set of customers or specific regions or geographies that you could possibly reach out to, and then create a means to communicate with them, and not just communicate, but also execute transactions. The big challenge here is how do you really identify those sort of bubbles? And of course, you could think of doing surveys or something even more complex. I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but if you want to reach out, we can talk more. Something called randomized field experiments, something very cheap and can be done and executed digitally very fast. So you just have a treatment control group of set of customers, and you try to figure out their responses. So yeah, I think identifying bubbles is an important, is a good opportunity for us to explore. Yeah.
Thank you. And Ruhai, you had a few thoughts you wanted to share?
Yes. Oh, yeah, thanks. Actually, I read these questions ahead of time. So last night, actually, I checked some on Google search, just search the search volumes on Limo and the Limo Z, and the search volumes actually drops to 2/3 after the economic lockdown. And usually, actually, I found that actually historically, actually, that's in April and May, actually, that should be the peak season for the Limo Z service. But now, actually, it's dropped down to the 1/3 of the regular business demand. So actually, it's basically, actually, I guess it's 1/4 of the normal years, the current demand. So apparently, I guess the limousine industry has a big problem. Actually, I face a big challenge. I guess the challenge actually is that my interpretation is that challenge is not because this business is blocked, but this business is highly related to some other activities like special events, weddings, right? That is the time people use the limousines. And I don't actually, right now the party basically is blocked. So all those special events, weddings, ceremonies, actually they are blocked. So that's why actually the limousine service actually are losing business. So I think there's two solutions. One solution is that actually this service is still allowed to provide, so you can consider to compete with the low-end market. It's compete with the cab and the Uber, and in that case, actually, some consumers really are afraid of the infection risk, so they will prefer the high-end, more secured service, which limousine has a brand value on that. But I don't know whether it's worth it doing that or not, right? And what the question talk about that, my interpretation is that there is kind of misunderstanding between the consumer, among the consumers. Some consumers do not order the service because they think that the service is blocked. If that is the case, I actually feel that is a good opportunity for this business to maybe gain more customers from their rivals. But the issue is that we need to identify who they are. So who they are, who think that, who do not order the service because of the misunderstanding. My suggestion is that actually, if that really happens, then go back to check your customer pool, the historical customer pool, check who they are, and then contact them through email, through phone, through messages, and then to let them know that actually we still provide service and get the business. And moreover, because this is a type of the customers actually do not consume because of the misunderstanding, we can assume the same type of customers for your competitors doing the same thing. Right, so what you can do, as long as we can identify this type of customers, you can use Instagram, use Facebook ads to target on those customers and let them know, okay, here we still provide this service and it's allowed, and then you can gain customers. And even after this reopen, actually you get new customers. Right, thanks.
Ruhai, I think one of the challenges here is that April and May are the months that are very big for school proms, especially at high schools, graduation dances, most of which have been canceled, or if they've been turned into a virtual dance, you don't need a limousine to go to the virtual dance. But most people growing up remember their school prom in high school. It was the height of the whole social season, and they've just been wiped off. It goes back to a question we asked earlier, what's the new normal? Will proms reappear a year from now? If they do, and everyone's going to go back to the dance with their love of their life, then the limousine business should bounce right back. If the future is virtual proms, no longer are we attending anything physically, then it'll be quite different. But that's the biggest thing, right, is affecting them. You mentioned weddings as the other one. Obviously, wedding gatherings are big problems. Again, to the extent we can get those social gatherings back together, I think people still want to have weddings as opposed to augmented reality weddings or virtual reality weddings. I think they really want to kiss a real live bride and have a real live dance and eat a real meal in celebration. I could be crazy, but I think we'll get back to that at some point.
You're absolutely
so
right.
much.
Actually, in terms of wedding, actually, from other countries, what we can see, which is ahead of Canada, actually, we can see actually after this economic reopen, actually, both marriage and divorce actually increased dramatically. So this is future opportunities, right?
Thank you. So, Dr. Waverman, I know we're running to the end of our 90 minutes today. Thank you so much for being here with all of your faculty, joining us and participating as well. I'd like to give you an opportunity to provide a few thoughts and closing remarks.
Thank you, Carla. This is I've learned a lot about my faculty today, so it's been terrific. I think we learned a lot from each other. I want to answer the limo question as well, which is that at this time you have unused capacity, right? You have cars that are sitting idle, and you have drivers who are not driving. And you yourself, I don't know what you would drive as well. But isn't this? But you have loyal customers, I'm sure. And isn't this the time where you show empathy to the community by saying, okay, what we're going to do, I'm going to call my loyal customers and say, do you have some food to give? Do you have cans? Do you have? And say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and pick up from each of your houses. Just leave it outside. I'll fill up my limo backseat and trunk with food, and I'm going to donate it in Burlington. And that would be a great use of excess capacity, and it would show empathy, and it would give you would show up on Facebook as, wow, this is a community partner, not just a limousine company. So I think for all businesses, one should think of how do you use the spare capacity you have. One is training your employees. The other is, what else can your employees be doing for the community at this time? Number one. Number two, so I'm a dean, but I'm also a faculty member in finance and business economics. So I'll use my long economic history to say I think that governments are showing that and spreading the curve out. And, avoiding the peak was really necessary because we could not deal with this absolutely abhorrent virus. And in so many ways, we don't even know what it's still doing to people, blood clots and lung, everything that's going on. But at the same time, I think they're understanding that we have to move out of the current environment. Unemployment rate in Canada, I think, is now just above 20%. It's 14% in the US. This is unheard of since the Great Depression. And governments understanding that this is not a normal recession because the demand fell, but because we ordered people to stay home. And so they're going to be moving, I think, more quickly to get out of this economic downfall, because we cannot exist like this. We cannot have this kind of employment. Governments can pay people to sit at home. They had to. The Canadian government was amazingly quick in the way they provided subsidies to employees and businesses, much faster than the US could or did. But I think that the time is running out. I think Ruhai was talking about the Canadian government deficit is hundreds of billions of dollars. The US is trillions of dollars. And we cannot keep incurring that debt to pay for all this. We'll be moving out of this more quickly. And I think that's good for everyone. And we'll see with all the new signs about new potential vaccines and and these drugs that mean that you don't die very quick. You won't die as much if you show up in the hospital because they give you these new drugs, soon cocktails of drugs. So I think I think the world will be better in the next few months, and we're here to help. So there is the website at DeGroote. Ask an expert. You've seen 8 of them today, and we're here to, as part of the Burlington community, to help you and getting you to rethink your business, to get you through this very difficult period that we're all facing. So thanks for signing on, and we look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you again very much, Dr. Waverman. To all of the members of the DeGroote faculty that have been on the line today, we can't thank you enough. I'm sorry that we have run out of time today. Our 90 minutes went very quickly, and this was certainly a fascinating and engaging discussion. So we really appreciate you making your expertise available to our membership and to our other counterparts through Team Burlington. So I encourage everyone on the line to take advantage of the generous offer that our faculty and students at DeGroote have made available. There's a link on the Team Burlington landing page as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask the experts at DeGroote. Thank you so much again for participating, and we wish everyone very well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.